How has your religious identity changed upon immigration? How has it not?
Well, first of all, it changed before immigration because I was raised Mennonite, and when I was, I think I was 13 or 12 years old when I went for religious studies for a year and a half, and then I quit. I refused to go on. As a Mennonite, you have to study for about 5-6 years before you can become a Mennonite. You have to be 18. And I just refused to go on because I just didn't like what I had learned from the war and with the Crusaders and the Holocaust and everything else. I didn't really want a religion. I didn't think it was necessary. Did I believe in God at the time? I wasn't sure, and it took me 5 years to make up my mind, and then I decided there wasn't any God, and I was about 19, and I felt really good after that. Then I went to Canada, and religion never really came up until the time I became a citizen, and I had to choose. And I said, I'm an atheist. And they said, no, are you Jewish, Catholic, or are you Protestant? None of the above. And they wouldn't accept it. So they put me down as Protestant because of my background. Now that has changed, by the way. It was a Dutch couple that went to court, and so no longer are they going to ask that question. But that's the only time it actually came up. I never saw a religious problem. My friends didn't go to church. I never heard of it until I came to Bellingham. And I found that people are religious here. Quite religious, and that really shocked me because of the fact they don't think you're nice. In Holland, the religion is not that important right now, but there still are sections quite religious. And I think the war changed that. The Second World War changed it. You know, my mother and me, and I said, you know, Mom, explain the Holocaust. Explain it to me. And she couldn't. She couldn't explain it. How can this so-called God decide who is going to be saved and who's not? And so, and then I learned more about the universe, and I think, you know, it isn't important anyways. It really isn't. Yeah.
Have you found in your experience one country to be more like religiously diverse or accepting of diversity than another?
Well, of course, Holland. Holland, right off the bat, is very tolerant. Will it stay tolerant? I don't know. And don't forget that, you know, the Protestant movement started in Europe, in northwestern Europe more than anything. And so Holland has always been very tolerant, but like I said, will it stay that way? I don't know, because of the fact that the Muslims are becoming more prominent, especially in the cities. But I think this is where you know, it's a very tolerant society. Canada is more tolerant than the United States, yeah.
Is Muslim becoming more prominent in Holland because people are kind of like moving from
They have
Middle
moved,
East,
the countries let them in. They've been very compassionate about it. Also, they're the ones that have the kids. Also, the daughters are forced to marry people from outside the country. They bring them in from whether it's Tunisia or Morocco, as long as they're Muslims, and that causes a problem because they come with people that aren't educated enough. The girls are getting educated in Holland, but they marry people that aren't educated because they're forced to, and that will cause a problem. You don't educate the women, you don't educate the sons, you don't educate, and then you have a problem, you know, hence like with Afghanistan and everything else, you just can see the problem getting really bad.
Yeah.
So this may be a future problem. The cities like Amsterdam and The Hague and Rotterdam, these major, this is like a mega city, and they're getting a lot of Muslim population, which, you know, it could be 10%, but it's going to get more now. When we were there 2 years ago, my cousin who lives in Amsterdam didn't see a problem at the time. And I saw girls in the Muslim outfits, not necessarily burqas. They didn't cover their, but you know, they had this, the other things, the headscarf and everything else, on bicycles, everywhere. And she said, they're fine. The boys are more of a problem because they drop out of school, they're not educated enough, and they're causing the problem, yeah. So who knows what's going to happen. Vancouver, for instance, there isn't any. Vancouver is one of the most diverse cities in the world right now. It's a very young city, so I think that's part of the reason, because the people, the kids that are there right now, they don't even see their own color. They don't see the difference. But when you look at the county people, like I have family in Langley in the county, and when you look at, they live in Langley, and you look at Surrey, there's a heavy population of the Sikhs, and dress differently, and so my sister-in-law would say, well, how come they don't dress like us? And I said, well, how come you didn't dress like the Indians when the Europeans first came to North America? Wear cedar bark clothes. Which stops an argument right there, because they must have looked, you know, we didn't go like, you know, adjust to that. So that sort of shut the argument.
Interesting. What is your opinion of separation of church and state, and how has each country you lived in demonstrated this separation or lack of separation?
Well, I think the United States does not nearly have the separation of church and state than Holland, but Holland is not perfect either. They have a Christian political party. The royal family is Dutch Reformed, and as you will go back to history, you know that the Dutch Reformed populated South Africa, and they started the apartheid movement, which is a Dutch name for separation of people. And so there is more separation of the church and state than here. For instance, you have to get married civilly to be married. Married in church does not count. Yes, so there is a difference right there. In Canada, although they're tolerant, more tolerant of religion, and here, again, I don't think a total separation is there, but if you've ever seen the news, you'll never hear a politician, I think Stephen Harper tried once to say, God help Canada, and they must have shut him up, because you'll never hear a politician say, so help us, so help me God, in their political speeches, like you hear in the United States. So there is more separation of church and state. And I think with the influx of other cultures, that is helping change it. Yeah, I agree about that. And so this may change here too, but you know, like Ron Reagan Jr., he said, it was so amazing that we have a black man who is only half black, because he's also white to me, he's an American, that he got elected in the government. Will they ever elect an atheist like me?
What would you say the most obvious difference is in the way each country displays its preference to the religious majority?
Well, of course, here it is Protestant white. Catholic, as you know, Jack Kennedy had problems with that. Who's the one, the Mormon?
Biden? Or...
Romney. Yeah.
Romney, yeah.
Yeah, and he, right now, at this point, is a front runner. So religion is a very important part in the United States. It is much more important than Canada, or Holland, for that matter. Yes, definitely. It's very prominent.
Yeah. Okay.
And like I said, Anglican, white, Christian.
You can't emphasize that enough.
Well, there you go.
So do you feel that your own personal beliefs were embraced or shunned in one country more than another?
Well, obviously was shunned more in this country.
Yeah.
And I understand that Washington State, being on the West Coast, is more tolerant than they are on the East Coast, and specifically in the Midwest. We have one gal that we know. She married a Mormon. I think she's German, and she probably married somebody in the military, moved to Utah, and she had a difficult time because if she wasn't a Mormon, you know, you weren't accepted. So I think there is a lot of intolerance.
I find that one country embraces the public preaching of religion more than another. So I think this has kind of already been answered in a sense. But
well, the countries that I visited, of course, the United States is definitely on the foreground. But there's other countries in the world, you know, that when you look at the Muslim religion, it's a religion that basically started after Christianity, when you come right down to it, and but it's also mired in areas that are traditionally much older than we are. So which makes it more difficult to change, you know, once they've accepted it. Yes, we have an intolerance, and it influences many aspects in this country. A big influence with religion is on teaching of evolution. And because of that, there's also a big influence on not letting the scientists do their thing. They're stopped in many, many ways. So it holds back a country. Yes. So we have a country that goes forward so far in one direction and goes almost backwards in another. And I'm hoping with Obama, who is definitely a different man, it will change again. We'll go forward again. I I think we will.